James is speeding down the road without much caution. Out of nowhere, a truck appears right in front of him, but he narrowly avoids crashing. However, during the chaos, he accidentally knocks over a young woman's suitcase. He quickly steps out of his vehicle and offers to assist her. At that moment, her bus arrives, but she already realizes she won't make it in time, and the bus eventually drives away. Feeling responsible, James asks where she was headed. She points to a location and explains that she's traveling to Silent Hill. She mentions a lovely hotel there called Lakeview, which is where she planned to stay. James offers to give her a ride, and after a moment of hesitation, she agrees. She introduces herself as Mary. As they begin placing her luggage into his car, the sky suddenly grows dark with heavy clouds. Mary explains that this is a Silent Hill summer storm, something that only appears when a visitor comes to the town. Later, James wakes up intoxicated inside a bar. A waiter approaches him and insists that he leave because he is far too drunk. James refuses, which leads to a small fight, and eventually the bouncer drags him outside. Soon after, his phone rings. It's his psychologist, reminding him that he missed their scheduled appointment. She tells him he must stick to his routine and asks him to come in for a session the following day. James returns to his empty apartment, where memories from his past begin to trouble him again. While looking around, he suddenly notices a letter addressed to him. He opens it and realizes it was written by Mary, asking him to come to Silent Hill and rescue her. He rushes outside immediately, but there is no one at the entrance. Determined, he gets into his car and starts driving toward Silent Hill. Unfortunately, he soon discovers the road has been closed due to safety issues. He stops his car near the place where he and Mary first met. Memories flood back into his mind about how their relationship began and how they fell in love. The next morning, he wakes up inside his car. He steps out and heads toward a nearby restroom. Looking into the mirror, he notices how exhausted and broken he appears. After reading Mary's letter once more, he tries to figure out where she might be. Then he begins walking through the thick forest, hoping it will lead him to Silent Hill. Along the way, he encounters a messy-looking woman who asks him to carry a sack for her. James agrees and asks why Silent Hill looks so destroyed. She explains that a massive fire once broke out in the forest, and the ashes contaminated the air, turning it toxic. James tells her he is searching for someone, but the woman immediately stops him and says he will never find her. Surprised by her response, James listens as she explains that the water is poisoned and the town has been completely abandoned. Despite her warning, James insists that he will still go and try his luck. The woman introduces herself as Angela and tells him that if he fails to find the person he's looking for, he can return to her. James recalls a moment from the past when he suggested that he and Mary should move in together. Mary told him that there were sides of her he hadn't seen yet, and if he discovered them, he might leave her. James dismissed the idea and assured her that nothing could ever make him walk away from her. Back in the present, James finally arrives in Silent Hill. The town is completely destroyed and filled with abandoned homes. He shouts loudly, asking if anyone is there, but the silence remains. He enters a tunnel and notices someone lying asleep on the ground. As he slowly approaches, a radio nearby suddenly begins to emit loud static. The man suddenly grabs James and warns him that they are coming. James quickly escapes from the tunnel and receives another call from his psychologist. He tells her that he has reached Silent Hill and believes something terrible happened there. He insists that he must save Mary. But the psychologist believes he is losing control and urgently tells him to return home. At that moment, James notices something strange nearby and immediately ends the call. He walks toward a nightclub that he once visited before. Meanwhile, the homeless man crawls out of the tunnel, but a terrifying creature known as Hamlet suddenly appears and attacks him. James remembers the first time he visited that same club and met one of Mary's friends there. They told him that Mary's father, Joshua, was the man who built the town. They explained that they were once lost in life, but Joshua helped them discover their purpose, and soon James would find his as well and become part of them. The conversation made James uneasy, but he kept his thoughts to himself. Back in the present, he runs outside and sees that the homeless man has melted down to nothing but bones. The radio he is holding begins producing static once again. Hamlet suddenly appears again and spits acid toward James, but he barely manages to avoid the attack. James grabs a metal rod and throws it at the creature, causing it to retreat into a hidden tunnel. Soon after, an emergency message plays over the radio, warning the residents of Silent Hill to evacuate immediately because the town is no longer safe. At that very moment, the Hamlet creatures begin appearing again. Suddenly the entire environment shifts, and night falls instantly. James starts running as fast as he can but trips and falls onto the road. While lying there, he notices strange spider-like creatures attacking a mouse. Within seconds, hundreds more crawl out of a nearby sewer and begin spreading across the city. Terrified, James runs for his life and breaks through a fence. He rushes into an apartment building and quickly shuts the door behind him, preventing the creatures from getting inside. Looking around, he realizes that this is the same apartment where he and Mary once lived together. He explores the rooms, but everything looks completely different and ruined after the tragedy. Eventually, he enters a room where he finds several DVDs labeled with different dates. Suddenly, the radio emits another burst of static, and James begins to lose his composure. Desperate, he calls his psychologist again and tells her he can't handle this anymore. He insists that Mary is very close to him, but before she can fully understand what he means, the call suddenly drops. James steps out onto the balcony and decides to climb up to the floor above. Concerned, the psychologist contacts the authorities and asks them to check on James. She fears that he is slowly losing his sanity and might become a danger to himself. After reaching the upper floor, James discovers a mannequin covered with moths. It is wearing one of Mary's dresses. Moving forward, he notices several souvenirs neatly arranged on a shelf. He realizes that this used to be the room where he and Mary once stayed together. A memory returns to him from a day when he came home and couldn't find Mary anywhere. Eventually, he discovered her in a room with several of her friends. They appeared to be performing some kind of strange ritual. But as soon as they noticed James, they immediately stopped and silently left the apartment. James felt frustrated because these people constantly came to their home and practiced bizarre activities. However, Mary defended them, explaining that they were like family to her because they cared for her after her father died. James also noticed that they had built a shrine containing a statue of her father. Mary asked him to ignore it, but suspicion continued to grow in James's mind about what was really happening. Even now, the statue still remains in the apartment. He also discovers a medical prescription showing that Mary had been admitted to Brookhaven Hospital. Just then, he hears someone coughing outside and goes to investigate. In another room, he finds a man violently vomiting. The man introduces himself as Eddie and asks James why he hasn't been infected like everyone else. James has no answer to give, but he tells Eddie that he plans to go to the hospital to search for someone. Eddie laughs in a disturbing way and claims that nobody in the city is still alive. He explains that the outbreak was so severe that no one managed to escape. To prove it, he shows James his own arm, which is already rotting. Eddie then asks James if he experiences strange dreams that pull him toward Silent Hill. Before James can reply, he suddenly hears the voice of a child outside. Both of them follow the sound and reach another passage. There they discover a young girl hiding in the corner who says her name is Laura. James tells her that it's dangerous for her to stay there alone and asks her to come with them. But just as she begins to move, they hear that strange noise again. A terrifying growl echoes from somewhere nearby, and Eddie suggests that they leave immediately. James refuses to abandon the girl, but soon they hear the monster getting closer. Laura runs back into the passage while Eddie angrily kicks James, blaming him for putting them all in danger. Moments later, the terrifying creature known as Pyramid Head appears before them. James somehow manages to escape, but while running he discovers a body that looks exactly like Mary's. However, the corpse suddenly transforms into those spider-like creatures. Horrified, James runs away again and hides inside another room. Through a crack in the wall, he watches as the creature enters the room. Soon, Pyramid Head arrives at the scene, and the two creatures begin fighting each other. However, Pyramid Head is far more powerful and brutally crushes the monster to death. Moments later, he notices James and prepares to attack him as well. But suddenly the siren blares again, causing both of them to scream in pain, and James collapses unconscious. James later wakes up alone inside a room and slowly steps outside. In another room, he finds Angela lying there by herself. She reminds him that she warned him not to come here. She tells him that Mary is already dead and urges him to leave before causing even more trouble. James runs away from there and soon spots Laura sitting outside. Laura explains that Pyramid Head couldn't reach her, so she managed to escape safely. James notices a teddy bear in her hands that looks familiar. She says Mary gave it to her and then suddenly runs off. James chases after her and eventually enters a maze, but he soon loses sight of her. At that moment, a woman appears who looks exactly like Mary. She introduces herself as Maria and suggests that the two of them try to escape this place together. James refuses because his girlfriend is currently in the hospital. Maria insists that no one in Silent Hill is alive anymore, but James refuses to believe her. Eventually, she agrees to help him search for Mary. As they walk together, Maria tells him that she has been stuck there for weeks. Suddenly, the siren sounds again, and James quickly tells her to hide. An armless creature emerges from hiding and begins wandering around. James explains that whenever the sirens sound, the monsters start appearing again. They continue moving forward and finally reach the hospital. James remembers that in the past he saw Mary's friends bringing her to this place. He had secretly followed them and discovered a hidden passage. From there, he heard chanting voices and followed the sound. Back in the present, Maria and James arrive at the hospital, but it is completely destroyed. James begins searching through documents scattered around. Maria asks him when he last saw Mary, but he cannot answer because he has forgotten everything. Maria steps outside to get some fresh air. James finds nothing useful inside, so he walks out as well. In another room, he notices that Maria has discovered a tape about Mary's diagnosis. Maria explains that a man named Joshua once led a cult in Silent Hill. Even after his death, his followers continued worshipping him like a god. She also realizes that Mary is actually his daughter. James suddenly remembers what he witnessed that day. He had followed Mary secretly. The cult members were sacrificing her as part of their ritual. He screamed desperately for someone to help her, but nobody heard him. They then carried her into a crowd that began consuming her soul. Suddenly the siren sounds again, and the room begins changing. Darkness quickly spreads as night suddenly falls. The two of them attempt to escape the building. They enter another room and see nurses standing completely still. But the bodies suddenly begin moving, forcing them to run again. They reach an elevator, but it refuses to work. James starts fighting the creatures, but one of them gets close and stabs Maria. Moments later, the elevator begins working again, and they quickly get inside. James brings Maria into another room and tries to treat her wound as she bleeds heavily. Maria says she knows he stays with her only because she looks like Mary. James tells her he still needs to find Mary. Maria says that if he fails to find her this time, then the two of them will leave together and start a new life somewhere else. Soon, James meets Laura again and asks if she knows where Mary is. Instead, Laura shows him her teddy bear, which has now turned into a disturbing baby-like creature. She blames everything on him for leaving Mary alone. Laura runs away again, and James follows her. He enters another room, but Laura locks the door from outside. Suddenly, a hospital bed flies above his head. A strange creature appears and reaches toward him. Laura says he is not ready yet and should only return once he is fully committed. The creature slowly pushes its hand into James's mouth. Suddenly, James wakes up inside a hospital. A nurse tells him he is in Silent Hill Hospital because they found him unconscious on the road. His psychologist is also there. James tells her that he now knows where Mary is. She calmly replies that Mary died right in front of him. She insists that he must finally accept the truth and move forward. James remembers the final day of their relationship. Mary came home, and he immediately told her to leave. She was confused and asked what he meant. James said he followed her and saw everything himself. He asked how long she had been involved in this. Mary replied that it had been happening since childhood. James said they needed to leave the town together. But Mary replied that she could not leave. James felt disgusted, and she could sense it clearly. Mary explained that she had planned to leave Silent Hill that very day. But then she met him, and he convinced her to stay. He had promised that he would never abandon her. But James said he could not handle the truth anymore and walked away. While leaving, he saw many other people still trapped in that place. Back in the present, the psychologist explains that James developed severe PTSD after Mary's death. A few days later, James told her he believed Mary died because he abandoned her. But she says he is unfairly blaming himself and that nothing could have saved her. Suddenly, James notices several moths outside the window. Slowly, he finds himself transported back to Silent Hill once again. Maria appears beside him and says it is time for them to leave together as promised. She kisses him and says they could even stay there together forever. But James suddenly stands up and begins walking away. Maria follows closely behind him. They both enter an elevator together. Maria tries convincing him that he can free himself from all his pain by letting go. But James ignores her words and walks out once the elevator stops. He enters a maze and tells her she is only a product of his imagination and must disappear. The siren blares again, and Pyramid Head appears once more. He brutally kills Maria in front of James. James collapses unconscious again and remembers how he started drinking heavily after their breakup. Later, he wakes up again outside the burning hospital. He walks inside and finds Laura waiting there. She asks if he is ready now, and he answers yes. She tells him to remember Mary. James suddenly remembers her grave. Mary's full name was Mary Angela Laura Crane. He realizes that all the women he met there were different versions of Mary. He quickly runs away and enters another room. Angela is sitting there and says someone will never let her leave. James tries to help her, but a hand suddenly appears from below and starts dragging her downward. James refuses to release her and gets pulled down as well. He sees Angela being violently attacked by a creature. He slowly reaches toward her and apologizes for abandoning her. Suddenly she bursts into flames, and her soul is finally set free. James then notices Mary running away and begins chasing her. He reaches the rooftop and finds a covered dead body. He remembers the final time he visited Mary at the hospital. She was lying on her deathbed. He apologized to her for leaving earlier. Mary told him it was never his fault. She had tried to protect him but could not succeed. She explained that her father had been poisoning her since she was a child. James attempts to help her, but she is already beyond saving. Mary asks him to end her suffering, but he initially refuses. She says she can feel her father's presence inside her and just wants freedom. Because he loves her deeply, James finally grants her wish and ends her life, freeing her soul from the torment. The hospital bed begins rising into the air, and Mary slowly forms again. She walks toward James and embraces him gently. James now regrets everything and believes he should never have left her back then. Moths begin covering them from all directions. At last, he finds Mary's lifeless body, and her spirit is finally at peace. He places her body inside his car. Then he drives off a cliff and plunges into the water below. Holding her hand, he promises that this time he will never let go. Suddenly, he wakes up in the same moment where the story first began. He meets Mary once again. Just like before, he helps her pick up her belongings. She prepares to catch the bus again. But James accidentally drops her luggage, making her miss the bus. He offers to give her a ride instead. She introduces herself. But James already knows her name, leaving her surprised. She gets into his car. This time, they drive away toward the city, leaving Silent Hill behind forever. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to press the like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for our upcoming videos. Until then, you might also enjoy this one.